Welcome, guys, to episode 12 of Cut the Curve, where I interview moguls, mentors, and serial entrepreneurs. I'm Flip Zweig. I've been in real estate investing 23 years in Arizona, and I'm honored today to have Mr. Stephen Trang over here,
Thank
who
you.
thank you for joining us today, Steve.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. I mean, I really appreciate it. You're one of the legends, right, in our space. So, I'm honored to be here with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Steve. And I was recollecting when I first met you. Do you
hmm
remember how we met?
I think we met at my event when I used to host meetups. So I used to host meetups in Tempe, Dave and Buster's, but I believe the one you showed up to was one we did at the bar next to Dave and Buster's because like we had a really big crowd
That was
that day.
probably the first time you paid attention to me, but I
Oh,
actually cold called your real estate office in Awatuki.
okay.
Yes. And
Yes.
I think that was 2016, 17,
Yes,
maybe.
I remember that now. Yeah, I think we had a consult. You were telling me what you were looking to buy.
Exactly,
I remember
exactly.
that now.
Because
Yes.
that's a big part of my business is networking with brokers,
hmm
realtors, and that's how I find my deals. So
Yep.
I know you said you were doing your own fix and flips at the time, and
Right.
was that the first that was your you own the brokerage there,
That
right?
was my brokerage. We officially closed it this month, so it's
Oh,
officially closed now. But yeah, we had
I don't know
that.
if that's a congratulations or because you run
Oh,
so many different operations and
yeah, it
businesses.
absolutely is a congratulations. I loved what I did. It was a great chapter in my life, but it's a chapter that it just was no longer meant to be with the direction that we're going. I could no longer service that to the level I believe it required.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So how did you enter because your background is, I believe, engineering, right?
yeah.
Is it chemical or
Electrical. So
electrical?
I have a master's degree. Was a PhD student at one point, but yeah, master's degree in electrical engineering. So yeah,
That's way different than what you're doing. Oh, I'm sure some of those skill sets really help you in your business, but did you ever think you would be doing what you're doing today?
no, not what I'm doing today. But I
Uh-huh.
always thought I was going to be an entrepreneur in one way or another. So I did not fit in the engineering crowd, and I now know why. Now that I understand personality profiles better. So I did
Hmm.
not fit in the engineering crowd, and I didn't fit in the salespeople crowd. Right. So I was too extroverted for an engineer, and not detail oriented enough, and too introverted to be a classical salesperson. But I also knew I was not manageable. So I always knew I was going to work for myself. I just didn't understand or know in what capacity.
Interesting. And did you see that in your home growing up, or how did you, what made you, are you born that way? What made you know that you were going to be an entrepreneur?
Um, I think it was mostly probably greed. Like you grow up. I mean, in the '80s, right? There was Wall Street, right? Michael Gecko, I believe,
Okay. Yes.
right? So you
Yes.
got that. This is going to sound really embarrassing and totally ridiculous, but when I was in college, I loved big timers. These guys with their Bentleys and their
Okay.
right, they're
So
spending
you
money out
have
of
a,
control.
you had that flash that you enjoyed that flashy stuff or the money aspect or how to
I
make.
enjoyed the idea of doing it. I could never do it. I just cannot go out and spend that kind of money. I wear a Samsung watch, right? I can't have a nice watch. I don't have nice stuff, with the exception of my car. But beyond that, I just can't do it.
Uh huh.
But I always appreciated the allure of being able to do that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I was raised fiscally responsible, so I can't
Gotcha.
can't do it.
So the engineering, was that kind of expected of you in the family, or how did you choose to? Were you good in math and science
Yeah,
and all that
so
growing up?
it was the Asian culture, right? Like you have to get a good education. You have to get straight A's. You have to get straight A's so you can get a scholarship. You have to get a scholarship to go, to pay for college, and after you do that, you have to go get a good job, and then you work and save money so you can retire, right? And that's the roadmap for the Asian family, right? You can
Hmm.
be anything you want so long as it's a family lawyer or a doctor, like, right?
Any of those three?
Any of those three is
Any.
fine in our books, right? Um, so when I decided to, and I became an engineer, not because I was passionate about it. I do enjoy problem solving, right? Which goes back with the entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
capacity. But I only did engineering because I was really good at math, right? Like I did all the AP classes, whatever. So back when I was in third grade, I was doing like eighth grade math, like so I was good at math, but I wasn't like in love with math. It was just
Right.
something that I had.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I did engineering. Did all the things to make mom and dad happy, and then crushed their dreams.
So you did it for your parents, it sounds like, or was
Yes.
it okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I just had a biography written about my parents, right? So it's the first time I said this publicly. So I just had a biography written by them. I read the first draft this weekend, and so like I am the oldest of 6 boys.
I never knew that.
And
Wow.
so with that, like the expectation was always, and my parents were immigrants, right? I wasn't even born in the United States. So they came here, they took the perilous travel, everything to come here to sacrifice. And so we have to honor our parents by doing what's right by them. But at the same time, again, I was not manageable. And I knew that once I had a boss.
Mm. So that's really the respect for culture, for
Mhm.
the education, the parents.
Yeah.
Because we're in an area where there is a lot of Asian families, and my kids are in AP in classes, but they're in tutoring too. So I always had them in tutoring, and it was interesting because there would be so many Asian families in that.
Well, there's a couple other things too, though, right? Like education is highly valued, right? Like we have to assimilate. That's part of our culture. Like being the Asian culture, you have to assimilate with the environment. Doesn't matter where you are. That's the reason why my name's Steve, right? It's not a Chinese sounding name. So we have
Oh,
to
gotcha,
assimilate.
gotcha.
We have to get good. We have to get a good education because that's how you advance. And then also, it's bragging rights. Like every family get together is like, my son's doing this, my daughter's doing that. Like, what are you doing? What's your kid doing?
So how do you top the valedictorian? Because is that like the Trump card? Like my son is the valedictorian of, because I noticed a lot. There's that discrepancy between that ranking is like this. It's
Yeah, so I
like,
was nowhere near valedictorian.
but the pressure must be immense growing up in that kind of.
Yeah, it's
like,
just incredibly high expectations, which is, it could be stressful. It could cause damage. I mean, I've recently learned that there does cause some childhood trauma. I don't regret it, but now I understand it, right? So the high expectations, but I think if you're going to screw up your kid, like that's probably the best way to screw up your kid.
Yeah, through education.
Yeah, like overeducate, super high expectations, and
yeah,
I think that's probably because we're all gonna screw up our kids
at some point. Yeah,
right.
Yep,
So if you're gonna screw up your kid, like that's not an awful way to do it.
absolutely. So you get the degree, then you go on to graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
Were you a Sun Devil or?
So I went to ASU, and then I went to UC San Diego for graduate school, and I worked at Intel for 3.5 years, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh my goodness, I had my son, like, I'm big into reading too, as you know. So like I had him and I paid him for it. I made him do the chapter outline so he could like sink in and learn it. And you could do that through YouTube, guys, for your kids. But that book is a game changer.
That was the book
mindset
that changed, right? So I thought maybe I would have. So I knew like general contractors, not real estate, but like engineering contractors who had contracting businesses.
Okay.
That would sell their services to Intel. And I could see it, right? Like, okay, they make 50% to 100% more than us regular W-2 people, right? So if you're 1099, you make more money. So eventually that was the direction I was going to go. I was going to find a wife, had good health insurance benefits, right? Marry her so we could take care of insurance, and then I was going to go make extra income. Just change directions when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Wow. And when you say you weren't manageable, what does that mean to the viewers? Like what is that? Like you're not the employee. Is that because some of the viewers haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad? And if you haven't, guys, you have to read that book. It's just a great book.
So when I say I'm not manageable, is that I will disagree with you, or if I disagree with you, it's well known that I disagree with you. And it's not to be disrespectful or anything like that. Right. It's so at Intel we had 6 core values, and one of them, which is like books have been written about, was disagree and commit. All right, so you're my boss. You say, Steve, here's the best way for us to move forward in this project. And I say, Flip, you're wrong, right? And it's like, well, this is what we're doing. So I have to disagree and still commit to what you said,
Oh, gotcha,
right?
gotcha.
Your vision.
Because that's that's your superior.
That's my superior.
Yeah,
There's a company core value. This is what we're doing, right?
uh-huh.
But what I would do, I was like, all right, Flip's wrong, but I will do it exactly how Flip wanted it. And I'm still going to do it my way. So then when the project's done, it's like, all right, Flip, here's what you wanted, right? Here's what I did. Let's look at the results, and then we would go with what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
So that is not disagree and commit. That is like, it's not disrespectful, but it's not, it's you know.
It's not in line with Intel's core values. So
it's disobedient.
How did that serve like that relationship? Were they like,
they weren't upset
because you produced, right?
I
like,
produced, right? I mean, I consistently got to exceed expectations on all my reviews, right? So like I produced, but this guy is not someone we can just kind of put into a cube and just expect him to do what we want.
Yeah, and that's what the big, giant corporations that cube them. That's like they expect, and so they're trying to mold you, and you've been molded for like you're not going to change who you are, and
right,
but people have to obey that, or you make the choice and you leave. So what ended up being that pivotal moment that you decided, hey, I'm not for Intel or
so Rich Dad Poor Dad says buy rental properties and have your passive income exceed your active income, then you can just quit your job, right? That's what they say.
Okay.
Or something along those lines.
Yes.
That's not what I did, right? So I went to go buy some rental properties, met a real estate broker. It's like, okay, like this guy is making $100,000 a year and he just kind of hangs out all day. And I'm busting my butt. I'm not busting my butt, but I'm working and I don't make $100,000 a year.
But you were probably, how many hours they work you? I mean, they were probably working you.
So Intel has a reputation of being a sweatshop, but I was probably working like 25 hours a week. I wasn't really working that hard.
So you knew how to.
I was also manipulating the system. Again, not manageable, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad says, get passive income to exceed your active income. Does not say become a real estate agent. I made a real estate broker. I think to myself, this guy's making more money than I am, and all he does is hang out. I need to figure out what he does. And so I go work for him.
So you got your real estate license?
Got my real estate license, 2.5 weeks. Go back to Intel, submit my 2 weeks notice, and I'm working for this guy full time. May of 2007. Not a good idea. But that's what I did. It upset my parents. It was
there must have been upheaval at
there was
the Trang family house. Like, holy cow, they were like.
Yeah, that was a massive curveball. And it was a horrible financial decision, but I wouldn't change anything.
Were you single at the time, or were you married?
I was single at this exact moment, and then married a few months later.
Oh, wow. So in the midst of the career change.
Yeah, so my poor wife, we did a whole ultimate bait and switch, right? She agreed to marry an engineer with a stable job.
Right. Stable paycheck, engineer, and then.
Right. And what she did marry was this bum that wanted to go work for himself.
Well, he's not a bum today. So he's made the right decision, guys. So again, I think it's a gut feel too. And I had Elise from Transform Real Estate. She's in San Francisco. She was in the tech industry, Asian gal too. And she had so much pressure to stay in tech, and she knew deep down for like 3 years, and finally they laid her off. She's like, Flip, it was the best thing ever could happen to me. She's been successful flipping for 5 years. And so I think internally people know, but it's like, I'm going to let my parents down. I'm going to let
it's 3.5 years, but Intel has a reputation of always laying people off. And so I kept waiting. Every time they had a layoff, I was like, please let me
be next.
Let me be that guy, right? And so they actually sold a division of Intel to Marvell.
Okay.
And at this time, with the expectation that this division they sold to Marvell was everyone's going to get laid off. That was the expectation. But that's not the official position, but we all kind of knew. Mm-hmm. So and I was in that division. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then my boss played a card and kept his division over at Intel. I was like,
you're like, I can't catch a break.
Cannot get laid off for the life of me.
Yeah. And so you could have did some tricks, like trying to get fired, but I don't think that would have went off too well.
No. And actually, when I submitted my notice, they're like, what do we have to do to keep you? I was like, right. I mean, if you pay me $200,000 a year base, they're like, we wish you the best of luck out there.
Because they're kind of capped too, right? What they could do as
there's
managers.
No way they could have made me that.
Yeah.
right? Like a entry level, or not entry level, but a low level engineer, 200 grand, like that would never
Yeah,
fly.
yeah. So all that education, all the sleepless nights of studying,
Yeah.
you decide you go in 2007, get the real estate exam. He kills it, by the way. 2.5 weeks is pretty impressive to do that. So you get that, and then you work for the broker you met.
Hmm.
And were you a traditional realtor? Were
Yeah,
you
I was a
one?
traditional real estate agent for the first 4 years, and that's why it was a really horrible financial
Man,
decision. It was a terrible time to be a realtor.
because the recession was right
Yeah.
around the corner.
And I actually learned about wholesaling from my cousin, because he and I both quit around at the same time. And you might know him actually, Wayne Ung, right? So
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
haven't done deals, but I know the name.
yeah.
Yep,
So that's my
yep.
cousin, right? So
Okay.
he quit like right after I quit, and he's like, "Steve, we should be wholesaling." I was like, "That's a fad."
So
I'm
you were like a skeptic. You're like,
very skeptical,
uh-huh.
and it took me 4 or 5 years to figure that out. And unfortunately, there are times where I'm very strong-minded, stubborn, and so totally missed out on that whole opportunity. But it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. So I'm sure you learned a lot of lessons from being because I've never wanted to be a realtor. That's the hardest job I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
So if you want to make money, I mean, you could sit around and not do anything, but what did you learn from that experience as a traditional realtor? Like, what was the main takeaway? Because
The biggest skills is how to manage multiple personalities in a transaction, right? So as a realtor, you have to manage the other side, right? So the cross realtor, you have to manage your client, whether it's a buyer or a seller. You have to manage transaction coordinator, an escrow officer, the loan officer, um, and inspector, and contractors if necessary. But there's a lot of moving parts.
for
A
sure.
lot of people that have, not equity is not the right word, but they have an interest
Mhm.
in this transaction, and everyone's emotional, and you've got to keep everybody's emotions in check. I mean, if you look at a buy sell transaction, like if you're looking to sell your home and buy another home, that's two escrows that are happening. And if it's a contingent sale, it's even more stressful.
Man, yeah.
And so I've read that the only thing more stressful than a buy sell transaction is burying your child, right? And I say that it's not exaggeration. Like, this is what
Right.
I've read. So I always have to prep. Like, hey, Flip, I appreciate you trusting me to sell your home, helping you buy another home. I just want you to know that in the next 2 to 4 or 5 months, it's gonna be extremely stressful. I want you to know that. So like, when you're getting heated with your wife, just understand like this is normal, right? So just be prepared mentally for it. So when it does come up, like it's not as extreme.
Man.
Right. So I have to
That's
manage
facts, yeah.
all these expectations and emotions.
Because buying a home is the biggest purchase you're going to make in your
Yeah.
life, is so it's very emotional. And
Mhm.
you're the guy, were you driving them around looking at
When I was working with
properties?
buyers, I was. And one of the most uncomfortable situations I had was showing a home in Ashland Ranch, right? Just not that far from here.
Uh-huh.
And husband and wife were like, I was driving them back after the showing, like they're screaming in the car. I was like, this is gross and uncomfortable.
Yeah, and you're kind of like the guy in the middle. You're the middle man. You're
Keep
like,
your eyes on the road driving.
I'll just focus on the road, let them beat each other up or whatever they do. So,
Yeah.
all kidding aside, for me, when I got started in real estate, I saw that from some examples, and I didn't want to be a realtor because the emotions with investments, it's all numbers.
Yep.
It's
Absolutely.
numbers.
Absolutely. So, but the ability or the lessons learned there does translate, right? Later on
100%.
when you're managing a team, when you're managing an organization, right? I'm incredibly blessed to have amazing people that work with me that trusted me with their futures, right? With their income.
Yes.
And so, being able to manage everyone's emotions and expectations and so on with multiple moving parts. Actually, I shared with you earlier, right? Like I had to cancel on you 2 weeks ago because like I was dealing with a tough situation because I have all these emotions going on at the same time, right? And that's
Yes.
the as a business owner, that's the hardest thing on top of everything else. That's probably the hardest thing to deal with.
The emotions. So we're going to get into that because I know you're very into the assessments and hiring and the testing, and time management's another big one I learned from Steve. Is like when I first met you, you're like you are lasered to like every hour on hour of your
Yeah.
day. So that's tell us a little bit about how did you Were you always like that, or you just
I would no.
learn?
I mean, the first few years of my career were absolutely wasted because I didn't have rigid structure, right? Like working 9 to 5, you got structure. Someone else is telling you your structure.
Right.
So once you become self-employed, there's no structure. You kind of do whatever you want, which sounds like a wonderful thing,
Right.
but it's actually an awful thing. And so I had to create rigid structure, and I learned a lot of it from Darren Hardy and his training, Insane Productivity. I think the single best training there is on time management. But yeah, like for me, my time is calendared ahead of time. So I knew this was on my calendar, right? Weeks ago.
Right.
So that I can't accidentally put anything over it, right? So everything has to be regimented. Every hour has to be accounted for, because if it's not accounted for, then it's wasted, right?
For
like
sure.
if you don't have anything planned at that time, then you're gonna just do whatever.
Right.
And that whatever is never a high income activity.
Right. Right.
So
because by nature we just do the easiest, laziest thing.
we just drift.
Yeah.
We'll just do whatever is like, yeah, maybe I'll check some emails, maybe I'll check my Facebook, whatever, but not income activities. And our time is too valuable
for sure
to be squandered.
For sure. So one of the questions that I've talked to with a number of guests on here, Stephen, is like when people will reach out. I know you have people managing your accounts, but like I manage my own. So people will reach out to me and some other guests and they'll say, hey, Flip, I just want to pick your brain or take you to coffee. How would you approach that from a different angle? If you were just new, trying to get in the business, what would you say to someone that you want to go be around?
So, and what I used to do, right, was I kind of take out to lunch, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. These days, I would probably do a little more research and figure out what is important to them. What need do they have? We hear a lot of like, hey, Flip, how can I provide value? How can I add value into your life? Which is much better than can I pick your brain. But what would be best is if I actually do some due diligence, find out what Flip's into, right? I know Flip's into Airbnbs. Maybe I'll look at some Airbnbs. Like, hey, Flip, I have some Airbnbs I'd like to share with you. Would you be open to taking a look at these?
I'd be like, yes,
let's
that's
go.
all I do.
Right?
Let me check them out.
And so, but then this is valuable to you. Now you'd be willing to meet with me over
that's
coffee
great advice.
Or lunch.
Yeah.
But if I say, hey, Flip, how can I add value to you? I'm not saying it's lazy, but it's not far enough.
Right. It doesn't exceed, like we talked about, expectations and everything you do. You should want to exceed the whatever. Like,
yeah. Like who
raise
would,
the bar.
If I'm in Airbnbs, why would I not want to check out additional Airbnbs, right? If I'm flipping houses, instead of saying, hey, like how can I add value? Say, hey, I got some properties that, look like some of the other properties you flipped. Can I share those with you?
Yeah.
Who's going to say no to that?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So you did the real estate traditional thing for the 4 years, and then your cousin, Wayne, did he finally get you to pull the trigger on wholesale or what?
No.
Like,
no.
You were still like...
So he's wholesaling and flipping this whole time. He's done very well. In fact, he's lending for me on a property that we're closing on. So
that's awesome.
For me, I did the realtor thing. I'm still a licensed realtor. But I was buying houses on accident in like 2010, 2011, because I was my realtor hat, right? Your home sold guarantee or I'll buy it. And I was marketing that hard, and I was marketing that on PPC, and I ran into people that message was appealing, but they're like, but I want the cash offer now. It's like, no, you don't want the cash offer now because it's gonna be lower if we list it. They're like, no, I want the cash offer now. And so like these people were closing me. Right? They were making me buy their houses. Like, okay, I mean, if you want cash, this is where we're at. And I was overpaying. I was paying 80%. I didn't know that. I was overpaying. So I was paying 80%. And we're buying these houses. We were wholesaling before wholesaling became a term. And we ran out of money, right? Like my parents, thankfully, they have cash. So we were able to buy 1 or 2 houses at a time. And it got to a point where I ran out of money and had to wholesale. And this is a fortuitous time because this is when I met Jamil.
Shout out to Jamil.
Yeah, shout out to Jamil, right? He was a Zillow lead back in 2012. Right, he called me off of Zillow in 2012. Right, he was doing that thing he's talking about now, calling realtors.
Yes, okay.
Right, he was doing that back in 2012.
Reach out to you.
He reached out to me, and I was like, well, I don't have a lot of deals, but when I do, I'll give you a call. And so I was wholesaling them
to Jamil,
because I ran out of money.
So he was buying the houses when I was cold calling Steve. Or that was 17, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that was well before you, but he's doing what he's teaching now. So he was like. So I would say, hey, Jamil, I got this property. Where do you need to be at? and then I would go in there and try to get it 5,000 because I didn't know 15,000 was an option back then. So I would try to get it 5,000 below,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would split, and then he would pay me his wholesale fee.
Yeah, Jamil has the largest franchise in America now with Keighley, right?
Yeah.
So check Jamil out. He does Keighley, and they teach. Their company is wholesale. Is that every right?
Predominantly
That's
wholesale, yeah.
predominantly wholesale.
Yep.
But he's mastered the wholesale business.
Yeah, he's
so.
mastered. And then you mentioned earlier Brent Daniels is the guy.
Yep.
Episode number 1. So I met him in 20
Connections, guys. Look at
2010 or so, right?
Uh-huh.
Like he bought a deal at the auction house at the auction steps, and I had a buyer for it before it went to foreclosure. So like I called this guy. I was like, hey, like my client was under contract to buy that. I see you bought it at the auction. Like, how can we do it? How can we still work together? He's like, if they pay the same price, I'll honor that price, right? And so he made $40,000. And I was like, okay, this guy just made $40,000. Like, I should take you out to lunch. And I met with him.
Wow.
So, yeah, long time ago.
That is a long time ago. Hey guys, quick announcement. I just launched my new passive income accelerator course. In this course, you'll learn how I built my Airbnb portfolio to 10 properties and growing while amassing $3,000 to $5,000 per property per month. If you want to learn more, go to piaaccelerator.com/go and sign up for the early bird special. And now back to the podcast. Steve, the guy that doesn't, you seem to network, be out all the time, and you say you never go out.
Well, like as a realtor, you have to know everybody.
True.
As a realtor,
yes. Yeah, that very true. So, you saw the wholesale thing was real.
I saw it, but I was still fighting it until I ran out of money. Then I had to wholesale because we couldn't flip anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
So from there, like, you're big into building organizations. I know you, because that's what I always admired about you as far as the systems. Like, you always talk to me about systems, and you got to set up systems. And I mean, so where are you at now, and where did you go from the wholesale to all the different companies you own? And
so I mean, there was a brokerage, and then there was a title company, licensed realtor. We started the podcast, which isn't a business, but then we started education. And then, I mean, we're now turning the media company into a company. Got involved in blockchain recently. I'm partnering with some guys that are doing big things, and he's gonna connect me with Chris Voss, which is pretty cool. So
wow, beautiful.
Because they're friends. Like, it's just
connections, guys. Like, get out there and
he's got to connect with
talk to people, as Brent says. TTP.
Talk to people, but you have to be doing things. You have to be documenting it, and that's the key, right? That's the reason why I'm here. We're documenting it. So, like,
100%.
I'm telling people about what I'm doing with NFTs, and NFTs right now is a freaking disaster.
Right.
But because I was talking about it, I got people that are actually still doing well in that environment reaching out to me, and now we're doing some other things. But I think talking about it,
yes,
on camera. But going back to you were saying the entrepreneur thing, the systems process. What was the question? I apologize.
I was just saying that all the companies that you've started, and it's amazing to see, and I believe it's all based on you being so systematized, even blocking your time down to a very strict.
I think the biggest thing, truthfully, is that I've got shiny object syndrome, right? I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
But I've been able to hire people to serve areas that I'm weak. So I was able to find people that are committed to the mission, right? Create millionaires, committed to the mission. They like the vision. They like what I want to do, and they can see how their journey fits within my journey. And so as long as I create an environment where they can thrive and achieve their goals while I'm achieving my goals, right? They're happy to row the boat along with me.
Right.
So I think that is the biggest key. Above all else, the people is the single most important aspect of your business. Like, everything is cool, everything's fun, and everything else, but
because you're making money, how couldn't it be fun? But when things don't go that way, the people have to be.
Yeah, you got to have the people. You got to take care of the people. You got to love on the people, and it's hard for me, right? Talking about being Asian, right? We bury our emotions deep down, right? We just create ulcers. Is how we handle things. But yeah, the having the people, that's the single most important aspect.
Having those skilled people around you, and as a leader,
right skilled people.
The right skilled people. So let me ask you this. how do you find the right skilled people for, say you're a small business solo entrepreneur, but then you start hiring people? How do you go about that process, or what would you recommend the viewers do to really find the right people? Because we've all had the wrong people in our
Yeah.
businesses. So what is the key for that?
So when I started my journey, it was Craigslist. It's no longer Craigslist, right? So now I say it's referral, right? Gary Harper is a friend of mine, a mentor of mine. He says like the best way to indicate the health of your business is dependent on how many referrals you're getting from within your organization, right? If they're referring their friends and family, then obviously they're spreading the evangelical, all right, the prayers of your company. So referral is number one. But number two is, again, creating content, letting people know what you do, what you're about, what you stand for. Because I have people reach out to me all the time. It's like, like I feel like I know you and I want to work, I want to do things with you, right? Like the business and so on. Again, like going back to the blockchain thing, like they're reaching out because they see who you are. They can tell when you're authentic. They can tell when you're not being authentic,
Hmm.
right? But they want, if people connect with you, they'll want to work with you. And so I say today, social media before, it was Craigslist. I mean, you can do Indeed and Wise Hire and all those other things, and those things work great too. But
So
that's cold marketing versus warm referrals.
say you find someone, there have been stories that you put them through a personality test.
Oh
Is
yeah,
that okay? So
yeah,
that would be something very valuable as the business owner to understand that
yeah.
personality.
So Flip is interested in working with me. So Flip's got to go to my website, fill out a job form, first name, last name, phone number, email address, city you live in, Facebook handle, Instagram handle, LinkedIn handle, why you want to work with me. And then there's a few drop downs that says, I understand it's a full-time position. I understand coming to the office every day is mandatory. Coming to the office and meetings are all mandatory. I understand that prospecting 3 hours a day is mandatory, right? Like you have to fill all that out.
Okay.
That's step one,
Right.
right?
So
Right?
if you made it past there, you're like, you could tell they want to do
They're
something.
serious,
They're serious
right?
about working with you and your organization.
Yeah, and I have people say like, you're crazy, but that's step one. Step two is you have to take the predictive index. And predictive index is for more or less a more complex version of the disc profile. So if when you take that, I can have an indicator of what drives you, right? Are you motivated by challenges? Are you motivated by having fun with people? Are you motivated by serving people? Are you motivated by just doing an excellent job, right? We could tell these four things based off how you take that profile, how you answer those questions. And based off of that, we know whether there's a fit for you in our organization or not. Not to say that there's wrong profiles, but at any given time, we have different opportunities available, right?
Sure.
If we're looking for a videographer, we want someone that likes to do a good job. If we're looking for a buyer's agent, we want someone that loves hanging around with people. We're looking for a front desk person. We're looking for someone that likes to serve. If we're looking for a closer, we're looking for someone that likes to drive, right, and win. So we're not saying that there's a wrong profile. It's just there might not be the right profile
At that
for
time.
our time when we have an opening.
So that's step two.
That's step two.
Okay.
Then after that, there's a phone screen. And if you pass the phone screen, then we bring you in for an interview, a formal interview, where we interview you using the work Who by Jeff Smart.
Okay.
And after all of that, then the person that's running that company has to do the final sign off. I'm not involved in any of this, right? So the company leader,
Systems. You got your
yeah,
systems in place. Yeah.
yeah. So the company leader has to sign off on it. And the reason why I'm not involved is because I will hire anybody and everybody, right? I just love. I think, man, Flip. I know you've never shown a buyer before, but I just believe you can do it. Like I just have that problem where I'm overly optimistic on people.
Let me ask you this, because I still get this, like, I wear the rose colored glasses.
Yeah.
Like, that's what people tell me because I'm so optimistic that this person can
High regard
do
for
it.
people.
Yes, high regard.
That's a
And
terrible quality.
it's a great quality, but it's your worst quality too,
Yes.
right? It's like
Great quality for social interaction, horrible quality for hiring.
right. So you got better suited people to do the hiring. So
Mhm.
after that process, the interview, and then you make the
Then we'll make the offer.
offer.
Yeah. And at this point, they're making offers without even talking to me. It's like, how much is that person making? Oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even involved in that anymore.
But again, if they're an entrepreneur, not saying it's easy, but you get beat up in the field
Oh,
all
yeah.
the time. So you got to be able to handle whatever thrown your way if you really want that position.
Yeah.
So I understand why you make it.
It's tough.
It's challenging. Yeah, it's challenging because you weed out people that you don't want to hire someone and then 3 weeks later they're not there.
Yeah, and there's like this anxiety, right? Like I hire somebody, it's like, okay, it's not a good fit. It's like, no, okay, like now what do we do, right? Like we made them a job offer, they quit their other job, they moved here or whatever. Now, like, and I know like the right thing to do is to let them go,
Mm-hmm.
but it's hard.
Right.
So
Sure.
I just rather reduce this anxiety and increase our percentages of hiring the right people.
That's awesome. And the other thing I heard you mention is social media,
Mm.
which I knew nothing about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Pace is another guy out here in Arizona,
Yep.
Pace Morby. So we were having lunch down at the golf course. He's like, Flip, you know everyone, but you don't know anyone. He's like, you got to get on Instagram. Just start with Instagram. And
Yeah.
man, it's a game changer.
Yeah,
guys.
it's the
a
best form.
network.
It's the best form of business card, resume, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, should I do business with Flip? All right, let me check his Instagram.
Let's see what he's doing.
All right, let's check his Facebook, right? Like, if this guy is constantly ranting about politics, probably not my guy. And I don't care if you're left or right? It's just if that's what you're focused on all day,
Right.
I just know you're not going to work in my organization.
Right. Because yes, 100%.
So if you're making like misogynistic jokes or you're just posting selfies all day, again, not going to fit within my organization.
Right.
So like those are things that we can see, but yeah, like what you put out there is a reflection of you, and then that helps us figure out whether we should do business together or not.
That's amazing. And one of the big things that all people on the podcast have in common is mentors. I got mentors all over the place. You spoke of a number of mentors, and can you tell the audience a little bit about mentors and what your thoughts are on having mentors around?
Yeah, I mean, I would not be where I'm at if not for the mentors in my life. And like my very first mentor was like I was sharing with you earlier. It's like when I was 6 or 7. The guy started the single largest hard money company in Phoenix, right? When I was 6. So like he was someone that my dad looked up to a lot. I got to visit him in his home, and then then I kind of never listened to my dad when I should have. But then as far as like self development or whatever. But once I started working for myself, I started. I had the broker. He mentored me for some time, and then I eventually hired a coach in around 2010, and that was like the best decision I ever made. And it was a hard decision because it's $1,000 a month, and that was a lot of money, and I already had a lot of credit card debt. So, but that was the single best decision I ever made because that's when I went from solopreneur to business owner. Right, I didn't know that difference. Right, even though Kiyosaki had the other book, right, about the quadrants, I didn't understand the difference between self-employed and business owner, and that's when I made that jump after I got into coaching. But everywhere along my journey, there's been a mentor to help me go from where I am right now to the next phase. So right now, Larry Yash is helping me a lot with leadership. Right, right now, I would say Nick Peterson, Dan Nicholson, Paul Sparks helping me learn a lot about certainty, which is a whole different thing, right? But we never talk about it. So I'm learning a lot about that right now from these other 3 mentors.
So see how deep Steve's into it. Like these are very like specific like roles that these guys are teaching you. So
we're going really into the nuance, right? Really deep into that.
Right.
And then for 2018, 2019, I had a sales coach, right? Brad Ferguson Sandler. I learned a lot from him. Right. So everything I teach as far as sales goes now, a lot of it I learned from him.
Right. So say, because a lot of things we hear is I don't have the money for a mentor. Like, and to me, it's backwards thinking. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, if people are telling you that, and then they're still hanging out with the same circle and they're getting the same results, and how do you like? I don't have the money, Steve.
So there's 2 ways. There's 2 ways to look at it, right? My first thing I always say is you can't afford not to hire a mentor. That's the first thing I would say, right? And it's like, well, I don't have any money. If I were to start all over again, I would have put it all on a credit card. If I could have started all over again, right? I'm not suggesting people do, but if I had to do all over again,
right?
If I were to meet my 2007 self, I was like, hey, dummy, like just put in a credit card. And the reason why is in 2007, I knew everything, right? In 2007, I knew everything. I didn't need help. I got it, right? That guy needed to be humbled, right? So that's what
Some hard lessons, I'm sure. Like you were
hard
like,
lessons.
Because I was that stubborn dude too in the beginning.
Yeah, I got it figured out. Like I've succeeded in every facet of my life. How can I not succeed in this?
Yeah.
And
That's the worst syndrome you could get into, guys. It's
what is
like,
it? What is it like? How do you make God laugh? Like, tell him your plan, right? So that I went through that experience.
mm,
Now I would say if it's not, if the, you can't afford not to, it's the first thing I'll say. But if that doesn't
no,
work, it's like, okay, well then maybe you're not in enough pain today where you need it, right?
mhm.
Maybe you're happy with where you are today. And if you're complacent, you're content with where you are, don't hire a mentor,
Yeah,
right? So for me, I believe that I was put on a planet for a reason. I want to maximize my potential, which is kind of a dangerous mindset to have, but that's where I'm at. And with that, I cannot achieve all my goals without talking to people that have done it better than me.
100%. Yeah. There's always someone that knows. If you're the smartest guy, I heard that if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in trouble. Like,
Yeah.
get in another room.
Well, and that's happened to me countless times
Uh-huh.
where I was not the smartest guy in the room. I got in the room, I learned from everybody else, became the smartest guy in the room, got in another room. Now I'm the dumb guy again. Learn everything I can, become the smartest guy in the room. Right? Like that is
Yeah.
the evolution of an entrepreneur.
Right.
You just want to get in bigger and better
You
rooms.
have to stretch, guys. I bumped into Steve in Scottsdale. I think it was last year at the what was that?
IMN conference.
IMM. And how do you say it?
IMN.
IMN. So that's a giant conference, and you talk about feeling small. Those guys,
Oh my God.
what, 80,000 homes, 50?
Yeah.
Like,
So I paid $2,800 to get in. Right?
how much?
$2,800.
Okay.
That's how much I paid to get in. And I walk into the room and I just feel poor. Just poor, right? And I'm walking around and everyone's got the nice suits, which is fine, right? Not a big deal. And these guys are on stage and they're like, yeah, how many homes do you own? I got 30,000 homes. How about you? Oh, I got 80,000 homes. Like, okay, right? Definitely the dumbest person in this room.
For sure. I was like,
and they're talking
man.
about what they do. And like, it's just crazy. Like the conversations in that room are higher than any other conversations I've had. So yeah, I mean, the goal is always to get into a room where you feel small.
Right. And meetup, like, what's the first thing? Meetups, pop-ups, would you recommend? Like, because we have a lot of new people just breaking in. What would you recommend people watching? How should they go about? Because obviously you got to pay $2,800, $3,000 for that. That's
not the first place you go.
Right.
That's the place you go once you have an established business. But I would say a RIA. I mean, just go to your local RIA.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? I mean, you and I, we bump into each other at ASRIA, right? That's the biggest RIA in the country, held by our friend Michael Del Preet. And so go into a RIA, meet other people, collaborate. If not that, find your favorite influencer in your market, right? Go to their meetups if they have one. If not, find someone that you like, that you respect, that you resonate with. And I think that's key. Right, someone that you resonate with.
You watch them on social media. You see their actions, see what they're doing.
See that they've done what you want to do, and they're living the life that you want to have.
Right.
Make sure those two things are happening. See where they're at. Hang out where they're hanging out. Or another, you can ask them, like, who did you learn from? Right. Mm-hmm. So there's all sorts of avenues. Like, you don't need money to get into the business.
And we hear that all the time, right? It's such a self-limiting belief too. Like, I didn't come from a lot of money, and my parents didn't own a lot of real estate, but I wanted to get into it. So I had to figure out how to get the money. Right. It's all over. There's so much money out there.
There's a lot of money out there. Now, I was lucky, right? My parents did have money when I got into it because they worked hard their whole lives. But, like, I also look up to them because they came over here with nothing, right? Like, we came here as immigrants, literally like the clothes on our back. So even though I had resources, but those resources came from my parents working hard. So, but yeah, I think as far as like going to a meetup, meeting other people, like, you just don't need a whole lot.
Put yourself out there.
Put yourself out.
Because I'm a more of an introvert too. Like you said, I like being around people, but to a certain extent. So I had to kind of force myself to go to the meetups. But guess what? Once you're there, you're like, wow, this is.
And you're going to find other people that are trying to do the same thing as you, right?
100%.
Now you can connect, get coffee together, jump on Zoom calls together, hold each other accountable. I mean, it's just,
what are their hobbies too? Oh, you play basketball? Cool.
Yeah,
I play basketball. Let's go shoot some hoops. Let's go to the gym. Whatever.
I was talking to Philip earlier, right? Just down the way over here at the church, I play basketball with Xavier Major and Brad Mortensen, right? Two other guys in our business. We just hang out Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. It's crazy. It's 5:30 in the morning, but we have hobbies.
Sometimes you have to make yourself available. If those guys are doing it, yeah, I want to go work out with those guys, no matter what time it is. Like,
Yep.
but that's super cool. So
Well, actually, let me stop you there real quick. So Pace and I used to run at 5:30 in the mornings, right?
I remember
Monday,
that.
Wednesday,
Yeah,
Fridays at
yeah,
Discovery Park. Again, not that far from here.
right.
And I would post it on Instagram. Pace and I are running at 5:30 in the morning. You know how many people that came out to run with us in all those years we were posting it? 4.
What?
Right?
That
Like,
blows me away.
if
Like,
I was starting brand new
uh-huh.
and I knew there were 2 millionaires running
Yeah,
together
that
Monday,
are
Wednesday, Friday,
doing amazing things. Like,
I would be there.
and you have 4 people.
Forever.
Man, yeah. It doesn't equate to me because
So
I'd
that's
be
why I'm not
all
worried
over.
also about putting that information out there.
Yeah. So if you want to go work out, play basketball, Steve's playing down there. So we haven't talked about one of the big things you got going right now, real estate disruptors.
Mhm.
That is an amazing, amazing show. So tell me more what the vision is, how that got started, and it's I really enjoy watching it.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So I was at Dean Graziosi's event. So I just did a podcast this past week with Dean Graziosi. I posted on YouTube. I got some really nasty comments, right? They're like, this guy's a scam artist, blah, blah, blah. Fact of the matter is, I was at his event in 2018, and he inspired me to start a podcast. So if everyone thinks he's a scam artist, whatever, he inspired me. And by me creating my podcast, I've changed a lot of lives.
100%.
So
Yeah.
say what you want about Dean.
Right.
He changed my life. So I started this podcast. I was on a mission to really, there was one of my objectives was to bridge this gap between realtors and wholesalers, because I'm in both worlds,
Mm-hmm.
but they hate each other.
Right.
Like
right.
they're always looking down on
Brent
each other.
just had a video on that today about realtors and wholesalers. So
So
totally.
like, the vision was to bridge that gap. So I actually alternated between wholesaler and realtor. Like if you look at the first 8 episodes, wholesaler, realtor, right? I mean, Russell Shaw was one of my guests.
Oh,
in the
okay.
beginning.
He's been doing it, what, 40 years?
40 plus years.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but I also look at my analytics, and I came to a crossroads, which I imagine kind of like MSNBC and Fox News, they have to make a business decision.
Mm.
All right. One piece of content resonates more than the other piece of content.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, all right, forget the realtor side. We're just going wholesalers and flippers. But that was the original reason why I started it.
2018?
2018.
Okay.
So May of 2018 was my very first episode with Templeton Walker. Right.
Shout out to Templeton.
Yeah, Templeton. So, but I started that. It's like, let's see where this goes. And we filmed 10 episodes and see if this goes anywhere. And on the second episode, we had Carlos Reyes and Sal Shakir, and that thing just kind of
So these are all the local. We have so many amazing people in
We're the
Arizona.
guru capital of the world.
The guru capital of the world. Yeah. There's so many great coaches and just sharp thinkers in Arizona. It's crazy.
But yeah, I created that, and I said from episode 1, I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires.
That's right. Yeah.
We can validate 11 because only 11 people have actually submitted a document certified by their CPA.
Amazing. Bro.
Everyone else is kind of
gets a fist bump. That's so proud. Yeah, that's cool.
So only 11 people have done it. So I'm always looking for more because we send them like trophies. We'll mail it to them.
Yeah, right? I remember.
Yeah. So, but on a mission to create 100 millionaires, and I genuinely believe that we've done it already. But validated, verified 11.
11. That's super cool. So who is on the show? Is it all wholesalers still and creative real estate guys, or
it's predominantly wholesalers and flippers?
Okay.
That includes creative, but wholesalers and flippers. We've had some hard money lenders on there. We've had some mindset people.
If you need an Airbnb guy on there, you know where to find them.
Absolutely.
Love to be on that one.
Yeah. So yeah, we can definitely make that happen.
That'd be sweet.
And so, but that was the mission, right? To bridge that gap, create 100 millionaires, and that gap is not getting bridged. I think they're gonna go after each other forever. Like that's a cause that I can't fix.
Right.
But
where is wholesaling going, Steve? Is like I've been hearing stuff for years. Oh, is that legal or illegal? And like,
well, I think it's safe for us here for the next few years because we just passed, was it HB 2407 or 2427, something like along those lines. We just passed that, right? Which basically says you need to disclose in writing to the seller that you're planning on wholesaling the property, right? Which I thought was like the most toothless legislation ever. But it is what it is. So I think it's safe for a while here. For a while, I thought maybe if you can't wholesale or you have to become licensed, then you just have to become licensed. Now I'm thinking about it. Well, if wholesaling was illegal today, we would just flip more, right? And who loses here? The homeowner, because I have to buy it deeper to flip it,
Mm,
right? So, but I think if wholesaling goes away, which I don't think is going away in the next couple of years, maybe in 4 or 5 years, right? All that's going to happen is then everyone has to flip it, and if everyone has to flip it, then the legislation that would be passed to protect the homeowners would just end up screwing the homeowners more.
right.
That's my suspicion.
Gotcha. So it sounds like with the blockchain and what you're working on now, you're very, and then let's talk about the sales training. You
Mhm.
do your own courses for
Yep. Yeah.
sales
So
training?
I basically took everything I learned from sales training, between Sandler, Chris Voss never split the difference, neuro linguistic programming, and 15 years of just getting punched in the mouth, right? Because we're in sales. And I took that and I applied it to real estate. So I gave really real estate specific language, the scripts, the dialogue, how to interact, how to pull away effectively, how to create scarcity. A lot of these difficult conversations you need to have as a professional home buyer. So we have a training that's catered all around that.
Love it. And you will share your website and all your social media after where all the viewers could follow you and they'll see your courses too,
Right.
right?
Yeah, and that's like one of the cool things that happened, not by design. I never said I'm going to be a sales trainer one day, because if you talked to me 5 years ago, or if you talked to me 15 years ago, like this is the worst salesperson you'll ever meet,
Mm,
right? Because I was an engineer, terrible salesperson, right? So I think I'm uniquely qualified to teach sales because I was really awful at sales and had to learn every single piece that
yeah,
comes with being a good salesperson, and then we took it, we documented it, we put it together, and created a course out of it.
that's fantastic. So, man, I've learned a lot today just sitting here chatting with you. Let's kind of end up, Steve, talking about the market and the shift and like
Yeah.
from your numbers and analytics, what are you seeing out there on nationally and then locally here?
So I think it's really interesting, like if you were in the middle of June, it seemed like the world was falling apart, because we had on January 1st, Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, said that we're going to stop buying houses or mortgage backed securities, right? Like that was June 1st. I was like, what the heck is this? And we saw like mortgage rates jump up. And then June 15th, they raised the Fed rate by 75 bips, right? 0.75%. And then mortgage rates go up even more. And now I was like, holy crap, what is happening? This market's coming to a screeching halt. Last week, the Fed met again and raised another 75 bips. I didn't hear anything about it. Like, no one's talking about it.
Right.
How was that possible? Like, last month when it happened, it was the worst thing
End of the world.
ever.
Yeah.
He raised it another 75 bips and no one cares. So, what's interesting is I think this is really screwing up how iBuyers and hedge funds are buying houses.
Ooh, interesting.
So, do you
Yeah.
remember when we were at IMN, the guy said, the way we buy houses is different than how you guys buy houses.
Hmm.
Because the way that most people buy houses, you have to look at comps. Right? Look at the comps, look at the 3 to 6 houses that have sold in the last 3 to 6 months, and that's what the house is worth. Right? That's how everyone that's getting a mortgage buys houses. How do they buy houses? Well, can I get a certain yield on this? Right? Can I get a 4% return? If I buy this house for 400,000, can I get, I don't know, $1,600 a month, whatever the number is, right?
Right.
Can I get that rental? And that's how we make our decision, right? We take the 1,600, whatever the rent is, back it out to get a 4% yield, and that's what we can pay, which was oftentimes $50,000 to $60,000 higher than market value.
Right.
Right? So that's how they were able to buy houses. However, with the Fed rate going up as much as it has, a 4% yield will no longer make any sense for these hedge funds and iBuyers. And if the 4% yield no longer makes sense, they can no longer buy houses. So what's going to be interesting to see, if the Fed rate continues to go up, I think that means the hedge funds are gone.
Because they, in Arizona and across America, big portion of the business was done through hedge fund.
Right.
I mean,
So they were driving a lot of demand. So I
Yeah.
think some of the hedge funds that are borrowing money from like pensions and that kind of, they source their money from other pensions or whatever, they can keep buying houses. If you were borrowing money to buy houses, you're out of business, right? And you look at some of these bigger funds, they were borrowing money, right, from Wall Street to buy these properties, and because they could make the money on the delta, right? If they're borrowing at 2 and they're able to get 4% arbitrage, right? They're wholesaling more or less, right?
Right.
They're making money off of that. So I think that
That spread, yeah.
market's gone. So I think with that happening, the hedge funds are going, or a lot of the hedge funds are going away. Not all of them. A lot of the hedge funds are going away. I heard OfferPad stop buying. I haven't verified it. Open Door, they wanted to win. They won. They have more properties than anybody else in Phoenix. So they're probably in a lot of financial trouble. So it's I think.
So does that create opportunity for us as the little buyers?
I think, yeah. So I know, I remember about 2015, 2016, I did all my own PPC campaigns, right? So from 2010 up until about 2016, 2017, I did all my own PPC. And I remember, like,
for those viewers who don't know, PPC is
Google pay-per-click,
okay.
Right? So all those advertisements on the top. I did all my own PPC, and that's how I was buying all these houses for a while. And I could no longer compete because there was this Open Door company, and there was this OfferPad company, and so, like, I can't compete against what they're willing to pay. I can't.
Yeah, there's no way you can
can't
compete
beat them,
against
right?
these companies.
So I turned off PPC, and then when we restarted a year or two ago, I talked to the consultant that was running our PPC. Like, hey, I'm very clear. Turn off the East Valley, right? I don't want any
That's
leads.
where we're at right now.
Right?
Yeah,
I don't want any leads in Scottsdale, Chandler, Tempe, Gilbert. I don't want any of those leads. If I see any of those leads coming through, I'm going to be very upset with you. Or we're not bidding in East Valley because that means we're competing against Open Door and OfferPad.
And they were overpaying, like Steven said, what, $50,000,
$60,000
over.
Right?
And that business model, like you knew it had to implode.
It had to end at some point.
Yeah.
So the opportunity today is that we can actually compete on those now.
100%. So I feel like there's going to be more opportunity for us as
100%.
small
I'm
buyers.
excited. I think that we're going through a valley of death through the rest of the year. I think we're going to go through a little bit of a purge. People that are in the business may not make it all the way to the end. It's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those that make it all the way through the end of the year are going to have a killer Q1 in 2023.
Yeah. And for Airbnb, like, we could get creative now too, because we're back to those days where we could structure some creative financing.
Yeah.
And people are sitting on properties longer, so it really helps our business acquisition mode. So We'll see what it brings, but again, you always have to be pivoting as we have the last 20, there's always pivots in the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So have your mentors, guys, because if you try to do it alone, it's going to be a long road.
There's only one constant, and that constant is change, and it changes faster every single year.
Yeah, that's fact. So I really enjoyed having you, Steve. Anything, final thoughts you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing, right? Like, for me, working for somebody just didn't work for me. So, if you're listening to this and you're stuck at a job that you're not happy with, bet on yourself. And that was a great time to.
I think Beyonce sang that song. And that's, you have to believe that. So you have to affirm that every day. You put the note cards up, guys. I am this, whatever you want to be, but you have to bet on yourself. And that starts with affirmations and surrounding yourself with your network and just making yourself be known. So good times ahead. This has been episode 12 with Stephen Trang. Where do the people find you?
The best place to find me is on Instagram at steve.trang, steve.trang, or just go to YouTube or iTunes and Spotify, Real Estate Disruptors.
Awesome, guys. We'll be posting this in a couple weeks on our YouTube channel, the Airbnb Climb, and then also on Spotify, Cut the Curve. So stay tuned. I had a blast, Steve. I learned a ton. I hope you guys did, and we'll see you on the next Cut the Curve. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.